Have you ever heard of the Sodder family? Their story is one of America's most perplexing and heartbreaking unsolved mysteries. A tale so strange, it feels like it's been ripped from a Hollywood script. It all began on Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family, George, Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children, were settling in for the night, celebrating the holiday season. Their oldest son, Joe, was away serving in the military. But this festive night would soon turn into an unimaginable nightmare. Around 1 a.m. on Christmas morning, a fire broke out in the family home. George and Jenny, along with 4 of their children, managed to escape the rapidly spreading flames. But tragically, 5 of their children, Morris, Martha, Louie, Jenny, and Betty, were trapped on the upper floor. Panic set in. George frantically tried to rescue them. He first ran to find his ladder, which was usually propped against the side of the house, but it was inexplicably missing. He then tried to drive one of his coal trucks up to the window to climb on, but neither of his trucks would start, despite working perfectly the day before. The phone line was dead, so a neighbor had to run to a nearby tavern to call the fire department. By the time help arrived, the Sodder home had been reduced to nothing but a smoldering pile of ash. The official conclusion was devastating but simple. The 5 children had perished in the fire. The cause was believed to be faulty wiring. But for George and Jenny Sodder, this explanation never sat right. It was the beginning of a lifelong search for answers. A search fueled by a series of bizarre and unsettling discoveries that suggested something far more sinister had happened that night. First, the fire department conducted only a superficial search of the ashes. They found no bones, no remains of any kind. The fire chief suggested the blaze had been so intensely hot that it had completely cremated the bodies. But Jenny, who had worked in a crematorium, knew this was highly unlikely. She even conducted her own experiments, burning animal bones to see if they would turn to ash, and they never did. The lack of remains was the first major red flag. Then strange witness accounts started to surface. A woman who ran a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston claimed she had seen the children on Christmas morning. She said she served breakfast to them, and they were accompanied by 2 men and 2 women of Italian extraction, driving a car with Florida license plates. Another woman at a Charleston hotel reported seeing the children a week after the fire. She said, "I do not remember the exact date." However, the entire party did register at the hotel and stayed in a large room. They were accompanied by 2 men and 2 women. These sightings were never confirmed, but they planted a seed of hope in the Sodders' hearts. What if their children were not dead, but had been taken? The events leading up to the fire also became deeply suspicious in hindsight. A few months before the fire, a stranger had come to the Sodder home looking for work and pointed to the back of the house, warning George that his fuse boxers were a fire hazard. George, having just had the house rewired and inspected, dismissed the warning. Coincidentally, the fire was later determined to have started from faulty wiring. Even more chillingly, just a few weeks before Christmas, another man tried to sell the Sodders life insurance. When George declined, the man became irate and warned him, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed. You are going to be paid for the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini." This was a pointed threat. George Sodder was an Italian immigrant who was openly critical of the Italian dictator, Benito Mussolini, which was not a popular stance in their community at the time. Was it possible the fire was arson, a deliberate act of revenge? The Sodders certainly thought so. They hired a private investigator, C.C. Tinsley, who uncovered more disturbing evidence. A bus driver who passed through Fayetteville late on Christmas Eve claimed he saw people throwing balls of fire at the house. A few months after the fire, a telephone repairman informed the Sodders that their phone line hadn't been burned through. It had been cut. And remembered that missing ladder was found inexplicably thrown into an embankment about 75 feet away from the house. All these pieces pointed away from a tragic accident and toward a calculated crime. Convinced their children were still alive, George and Jenny dedicated their lives to finding them. In 1952, they erected a large billboard along Route 16 with pictures of their 5 missing children, offering a substantial reward for information. They printed flyers and followed up on every single lead, no matter how outlandish. They traveled across the country, their hope unwavering even as the years turned into decades. The billboard became a local landmark, a permanent, heartbreaking reminder of the mystery that haunted their town and their family. It was a testament to a parent's undying love and their refusal to give up. Perhaps the most haunting clue of all arrived 20 years after the fire. In 1968, Jenny Sodder received an envelope in the mail, postmarked from Kentucky, with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his late 20s who bore a striking resemblance to their son, Louis, who would have been around that age. On the back of the photo was a cryptic handwritten note, "Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie. I lo boys." A 90132 or 35. The Sodders hired another private detective to investigate this new lead. But the detective took their money and was never heard from again. The family added the new picture to their billboard, updating it in the hopes someone would recognize the man. But this, too, led to a dead end. Another tantalizing piece of the puzzle that ultimately provided no answers. So what really happened to the Sodder children? The theories are numerous and deeply unsettling. One popular theory is that the Sicilian mafia was involved, possibly as retaliation for George's anti-Mussolini sentiments. The balls of fire and the cut phone line fit the profile of a planned attack. In this scenario, the children were kidnapped during the chaos of the fire. Another theory suggests the children were taken by someone they knew, perhaps in a dispute over something else entirely. Could someone have wanted to adopt children and saw an opportunity, or was it something else? The mystery has been featured in countless articles, books, and television shows, but a definitive answer remains elusive. George Sodder passed away in 1969, a year after receiving the mysterious photograph, never knowing the fate of his children. Jenny continued the search until her death in 1989. After she passed, remaining family members finally took down the weathered, time-worn billboard that had stood as a symbol of their family's tragedy for nearly 40 years. The official case remains open to this day, but the leads have long gone cold. The story of the Sodder children is a powerful and somber reminder that sometimes the most profound questions are the ones that are never answered. It's as a chilling piece of American history that continues to captivate and mystify anyone who hears it. What do you think happened on that fateful Christmas Eve? Was it a tragic accident, a mafia hit, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this story as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest unsolved mysteries. See you next time.